Hello everyone, this will be a new series I'll be starting on the channel. Sweet Home is a series I read years ago, I think right after it finished. I think you pronounce the author's name Karnby Kim. I read a few of his other works like Bastard, and I am currently reading Shotgun Boy, which is a prequel to this series. I read those because of how captivated I was with this series, so I wanted to go and read more of the creator's works. This will be my first manhwa I will be covering on the channel, so I hope you all enjoy. Like and subscribe if you are interested in what I'm doing. Now, let's begin. We start out with the main character basically being absorbed in his computer and ignoring his family who wants him to go on a family trip with them. We do see cuts on his wrist, so there's obviously a reason he's like this. His mother tries to plead with him to come, but he tells her to stop talking because he hates her voice. I'm guessing he's severely depressed, but he doesn't have to be such an asshole. The father complains about him in the car, blaming the mom, and they start to fight about it until we cut to a guy in a truck having a heavy nosebleed. And we see him swerve right at the main character's Hyun's family. Then we go to Hyun finding out what happened. I'm guessing we time jump a bit and find Hyun arriving at his new apartment since most likely he had to leave his family home since there's no way he can pay for it. And as soon as he gets there, he is almost hit by a weed whacker blade.
What the fuck, bro?
The security guard apologizes for what happened just now, welcoming him into the building and telling him the basic rules before sending him on his way. He gets to his room and flashes back to his family's funeral with everyone being pissed he's late, and then he shows up in normal clothes. He then gets angry at his dead family for only leaving him $2,000, so everyone at the funeral basically just kicks him out. Looking at how he was scrounging for ways to stretch the money, he starts to hate himself, and not wanting to go through all this pain, he decides he is going to kill himself and sets a date to do it on. He sets up his stuff and he is frustrated that he won't have Wi-Fi for a day, but starts to hear a voice in his head, but gets distracted by the security guard coming to his door reminding him to come get his stuff, and Hyun just tells him to leave him alone. And he sees a woman yelling at her mom on the phone complaining about being hungry and getting a nosebleed. We see a quick snippet of a flashback, but we will get to that in due time. He finds out that the soundproofing in his building is trash since he could hear when his neighbor, the woman, gets back, and he pervs on her a bit listening to her against the wall, and even imagines her in the shower. It's a sweet thing to see Hyun all flustered since he's been pretty down so far. He starts to think this place is pretty nice until he hears a upstairs neighbor playing a bass guitar and rescinds his comment. We time skip a week and see that Hyun is getting used to living there, and that someone on his game was saying that he is hearing voices and getting constant nosebleeds until he starts freaking out in the chat before going silent, and everyone just makes fun of him. We cut to a new character, Wook, complaining that someone locked the door to the roof, and Sun, who started to complain about him smoking while she was going up to smoke herself. We see another flashback to something having to do with Hyun's father, but that's all we get. He gets up to get his ramen from outside, and sees that it's been ripped open, leading to his neighbor. But once he gets to the door, he sees blood and her cat's collar.
Fuck this. Fuck. Fuck. Did you see this? Look at this.
He sees a weird hand reach out and grab the collar, so he slowly backs out of the doorway, but steps on a bag, hearing a voice saying that there is something to eat.
Hell no, to the no, 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 yeah, to the no.
He goes back to his room and hides under the bed while he hears her walking to his room, and she rings the doorbell. We cut over to a man coming from his job talking to someone, but his phone gets disconnected, and soon afterwards he turns around to see something towering over him and gets killed by it. We go back to Hyun, who then hears his neighbor's voice and sees her panicking on the door video feed. So he gets up to answer. He answers her and she asks for help, but he does the smart thing and asks to see her hands. She starts to freak out, demanding he let her in until they both hear the upstairs neighbor playing her guitar. so the monster leaves to go get her. He seems to be compelled by his instinct to go help her, so he breaks off a mop handle and goes outside the room. He calls out for her to come get him, and he hears something coming down the stairs. We cut to him remembering a time when someone forced others to beat on him, but cut away again. We find out that the thing coming down the stairs was Wook, who actually greets him pretty warmly. But once he sees the blood everywhere, he gets pretty serious, as he should, and Hyun tries to explain to him that there are monsters around. But he starts to get a nosebleed and passes out. As he is passed out, he starts to see a weird fleshy mass telling him that they are the same but different, and wants to know what he wants. He wakes up back in his bed and logs on to the internet, but he sees all the trending topics, realizing it was not a dream he just had. Then he looks out the window and sees how the world is starting to fall apart. That's where we end this part. Let's move on to the discussion. So our main character Hyun is kind of a dick, but he still has some good in him, wanting to still save someone he thinks is in danger. And seems like he was dealt just a shit hand in life, unfortunately. I'm sure we will get more about his past, since we keep flashing back to it. We also see that his nose is starting to bleed, which seems to indicate that someone is going to turn into a monster. And speaking of the monsters, let's get into that. It seems the guy that hit Hyun's family was in the middle of becoming a monster or something, since we saw him gushing blood from his nose. And we saw the security guard having a nosebleed as well, so we are going to have to look out for him in the future. Now, talking about the starving monster, she got freaky with how the artist drew her, and I love the way he depicts it. This also helps us figure out that the monsters seem to transform into something that represents their desire, since she transformed into something that constantly eats, and that the voice in Hyun's head is the monster wanting to transform him. We also learn that these things aren't stupid either, since the hungry one tried to trick Hyun into opening his door for her. I will say this right now, I really like Wook, and he generally seems like a pretty good fella. But besides him and Yoon, we don't really get introduced to anyone else in this part of the series. So overall, this story is shaping up to be good and gives people enough hooks to drag them in, like Hyun's tragic story and the mystery of his past, along with the main hook that is the different monsters we are going to see in the story. If you are still here, make sure to like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe so you can stick around for the other parts I'll be getting to shortly. With that, I will see you guys later. Bye guys!